All right, so we're here at on Thursday evening. Have just a little bit of time. I titled this "Let's Circle Up," or "It's Time to Circle Up." I wanted to just expound a little bit on what I talked about yesterday, and this book, The Circle Maker. If you didn't catch that live from yesterday, go watch it. I'm actually going to be drawing a winner for this today, and then I'll have another gift I'm giving away that I'll draw for tomorrow. But anyway, I just didn't feel like I had given this thought enough time yesterday because I was a little bit rushed, and so I wanted to come back in with a few more thoughts. And so this book centers around the story of this sage, an old wise man who the back 400 years before Jesus was born, Israel went through this time of drought, and this man believed that God would hear his prayer, and so he drew a circle. And he knelt in that circle actually and said, God, I'm not moving from this circle basically until you answer my prayer. And so he drew that circle. And so this book walks through like circling your prayers, circling your family, circling circumstances, and what it looks like to draw a circle around what you're believing God for. And it's a powerful thought, and if you think about it, that's not a new concept. Like, that concept has been around. So if you go look in Joshua 6, Joshua 6, the children of Israel are in a battle, and there's a fortified city of Jericho that they're wanting to take. But it's fortified, and so they cannot, get through to that city. And so what God told them to do was He told them to take the trumpet and the praise band and to lead the people of Israel, but they weren't supposed to say anything, and they were supposed to march around the outer walls, so circling that city. And then they weren't supposed to say anything, but just march around it. And they did that for 6 days, and then on the seventh day is when they were supposed to, after the trumpet blown, they were supposed to walk around it 7 times, and on that last pass, they were supposed to give out a great shout, and if you go back and read that Bible story, the walls fell. So God answered that prayer. So that's another story of God answering a prayer when we circle. It's circling. If you're hopping on here with me live, let me know. Let me know you're here. Do live in the comments, or say hey. Hey, Delane, I love that story too, and it's just so powerful. And so if you think about it, as I think about recent times, I know a lot of churches, before school starts, they go and they circle the school. They're covering the school in prayer. They're circling that school. We have a thing in Columbus, Georgia, that our prayer team leader, had God laid on her heart to start a Tri-City prayer initiative, and it's with Columbus, Phoenix City, and Fort Moore. And she's, this is the second year of that. And one of the things that we do with that coalition, that group of volunteers, is we cover the city in prayer. Those 3 cities, we cover them in prayer, and even the outlying areas. And we're praying circles around the schools. We're praying circles over all the overpasses, and around the government buildings, and around the law enforcement and fire department and EMS, and around churches, and around the one more thing. I lost that. Hospitals, the hospitals. And so we are covering the city in prayer and praying circles around them. So we're covering that. Yeah, Delane, homeschoolers too. That would be a great thing to add on that prayer list. But they, there's power in that, and so if you think about it, what you're doing is whatever God's promised you, you're just praying around that, and so in this book he talks about when they started their church in Washington D.C. They were looking for a place, and God led them to this place that they didn't have the money for, and it's actually a full block in Washington D.C. in the inner city. And what God told him to do was to walk around that block and cover it in prayer. And so that's what he did. He walked around it. And, you might say, well, that really doesn't do anything. But what that does is it puts your faith in motion. It's putting feet to your faith and walking and claiming that. And so there's a scripture I just thought of. I'll hang on to that. Hey, Tori, I love this book too. I've given it away a bunch of times. The books that I love that mean so much to me, I buy a bunch of them and then I give them out. So I had a couple of these left sitting around, so I'm going to give them out. But I have one scripture I got to look up, but I wanted to say, if we look in Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 and 8, it says, "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and everyone that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocks it shall be opened." And so when we circle those things in our prayers, we are continuing to bombard heaven. We're continuing to go to the throne, and we are circling our prayers. And what that does is putting our faith in action. We're going round and round that thing, and just bringing it before God. And what that does is show God, hey, I am seeking you because this is important to me. And God, he loves to answer those prayers and to, he's concerned about those things that we're concerned with, whether small or big. He's concerned with those things, and he wants us to call on him. He wants us to bring those things to him. I'm going to try to find this verse. Hopefully, and I'll tell you what it is. Maybe if anybody that's watching knows where it's at, it's where I think it was either Moses or Joshua. I can't remember, but God said, "Wherever your feet shall go, that's the land I'm going to give you." Let's see if I can find it. May take me a minute. But and that's what that means. So when I think about circling my prayers, I think about, and it doesn't just have to be physical, but if you could do it physically, I think that would show God. I think that would be powerful, just to circle whatever it is. And when it says pray circles around your children, that doesn't mean you're just running around. They might think you're crazy if you do that, but pray a hedge of protection around them. Pray that God protects them. Pray that God reveals himself to them. Cover them in that circle of prayer. That's what that means. And so I think God gives us that ability to do that. I don't know. I may have to find that scripture. I'm not finding it right here, right now. But it says, God will give you wherever your feet may go. That's the land that God's going to give you. And so I think, that ties right in with this. Now, I'm going to go back to what Mark Batterson said about their church. It was a miracle, but God gave them that building. I mean, they had to put money on it, but God worked everything out to where they were able to get that whole block. And so that whole block in the inner city of Washington, D.C. is a light. Just like it says in Matthew 5:14, a city on a hill can't be hid. And, you know, that church, that congregation, there's a coffee shop there called Ebenezer. There's that, I think that's in the book too, where it talks about how that came to be, that vision, and just how God has really opened doors for ministry through that. And so it's just such a powerful thing to think about, circling your prayers, circling those things that you're holding to, the promises of God that you're holding to, circling those, and physically circling them, I think is powerful too.